What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Beneath the Hood. This is episode 2, and boy, is it an exciting episode because Bubba and I just finished playing Assassin's Creed Shadows, and it was a preview build. They gave it to us 2 months early to try out. We got to do the prologue and then open world and free roam, and they set up some side missions and stuff, and in total it was 4 hours. So we got to go pretty deep on the game, and we had a great time. Bubba, how are you?
Dude, I'm so excited. Welcome everyone to the podcast. Thanks for being here. Thanks for all the support, by the way, on the first episode. This is just something new that we were passionate about. We wanted to try, and it's so great to see such great feedback both on TikTok and YouTube. So thank you guys. If you're watching the second one after watching the first, thanks for watching the support. If it's your first one, welcome. We're so excited to talk about this. My gut reaction, and I want to ask you, I thoroughly enjoyed this game. I really did, and I was so sad at the end that I couldn't play more. It felt so natural. I did run into a lot of bugs. I'm not allowed to highlight them necessarily. We're not going to be going into those too much. Yeah. I did run into bugs, and that was totally okay. The bugs, though, were very, sporadic and random, so there wasn't anything like, ooh, they got to fix this game mechanic. Like, everything, for the most part, is very polished that I saw. And honestly, dude, 9 out of 10. Like, this is going to be so good. We'll get into details, but, Johnny, what's your gut reaction here?
My gut reaction was, I genuinely think this has that franchise saving potential. Like, this is we're kind of back. Like, they actually cooked. They did so, and I just want to say this out to our wonderful listeners that Bubba and I have not discussed a word of this. We purposely wanted to save this for the podcast.
Fresh.
So we are. I don't know what his thoughts are. He doesn't know what my thoughts are.
And we disagree, guys,
excited.
A lot. We disagree on so many things with Assassin's Creed. So then we might disagree a little bit here, but I'm excited to see both our reactions.
It sounds like we both had a really good time.
Yes.
So how they did our preview, guys, is they gave us the prologue, which for me, from starting the preview to the end of the prologue, was probably hour 20 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, it was long. Then it was actually pretty long.
It was long. And then they gave us 2.5 hours of, they said, they dropped you basically, I would guess, halfway through the game. So you're leveled up, you have some gear. 20. Yeah, you have some abilities, that kind of thing. So, and that was about, like I said, 2.5 hours or something. So we got to really go in deep. But I think we should start right on the prologue. What did you think?
Okay, the prologue was so cool. Like I said, it was actually long. I was surprised at how much time we took on the prologue. And it goes into kind of both their origin stories a little bit. We aren't going to talk about spoilers for the prologue. I think we might be allowed to, but I just don't want to. It's a really interesting prologue. They really, they make you feel for both the characters. They really do. And specifically their animation. I'll get into this later, but their animation has really taken a jump up, and you feel so much emotion. And just like Assassin's Creed Origins, just like Assassin's Creed 2, they pull at your heartstrings on this one, guys. They really do. And I loved the prologue. The gameplay was really cool. The story is really great. It was longer and dynamic, and it's so cool having the dual protagonists. We don't see them come together or anything. This is just the start of their stories, but I really liked it. What about you?
I will say No. The story, in terms of the plot that they wrote and the way they're going about it, I'm very happy with. I'm very impressed with. And I loved the way they did. So basically, they start you with that cutscene of overlooking the hills and the I'm not going to spoil anything, but an army's marching toward you, and then you go into Yasuke's part, and then once his part's done, you go back to that original cutscene and you go into Naoe's part. So you see kind of their stories happening at the same time, which I thought was really, really well done. And the setup of it, there were so many, again, without any spoilers, there were so many Assassin's Creed tropes, which I loved. What I will say that I was not fully impressed with was the overall presentation of it, like in their during the cutscenes, during their like talking, especially the NPC looked a little like Disney World animatronic-y, if that makes sense. Like a little bit like robotic, a little dead. But I mean, it's nothing we haven't seen. Like Mirage, in my opinion, has a very similar issue. I think Valhalla, and I think they do suffer from that kind of dead kind of it's like Skyrim NPC kind of thing. And I kind of felt the same way. No, the main characters looked good. The voice acting was fantastic. I was impressed with a lot of things, and then some very nitpicky things I didn't love. But one thing, and I want to get your opinion on this as well, but one thing I did like in this game more than previous ones is the dialogue options. They were much more organically intertwined. So you would be somebody would say something to you, and then it would pop up, and it would say, choose this or this, instead of like, again, like that Bethesda, like right up in your face, now you have these 6 options to choose from. It was much more organic, and I liked that a lot more. What did you think?
Yeah, I really liked it, and I think it's interesting you bring up kind of the animation and the detail of the characters in the cutscenes. So I did notice this, because in the very start, I was the same way. I was like, hold on, some of these characters look a little goofy, look a little low res. There's not a lot of detail in their face, but then I realized it's all of the side characters, like not the side characters, like the NPCs. So the actual NPCs were very low res, but the actual main characters and the main people they're talking to, phenomenal. Like Red Dead Redemption 2, and I do not say this lightly, Red Dead Redemption 2 level of detail in the faces. You could see like every crease, every freckle, every bump and mole on their face. The dynamic lighting, you had warm and cold light on them at different times. You could see sweat and their skin glistening because it's humid. You're in Japan. You could see them wince in pain, or you could see them be suspicious in their eyes. Like every little emotion that they feel, you can see it. It's palpable, but it's just for the main characters. And so one thing I'm wondering is, it could be one of two things. One, it could be the NPCs just aren't finished all the way, or maybe they, this is an earlier. I actually asked my demoist what version of the game this is. If this is like a January version or December version, like how old is this demo that we're playing? And she couldn't tell me, but it could be that it's just not all the way finished, and so the main characters are done, but the side ones aren't. Or, and it definitely could be this, in Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Valhalla, there is a graphic setting that you can toggle, that you can raise the level of detail for just Cassandra or just Alexios or just, the main character, and then you can also adjust the graphic quality for everybody else. And so I'm wondering if there's a setting like that was maybe on. They did tell me it was set to Ultra. Everything was set to Ultra, so it could not be that. But there is a setting in the older games that you can change the level of detail from just your character and also NPCs and side characters. So that it definitely could be relating to that, and maybe that's why they animate them at different times. But the ones that were good were incredible. The level of detail was so cool, and the emotion was palpable, and that is so needed. And I brought that up to my demoist, and she said, I'm so glad you noticed that, because the devs were very proud of that, and that's like a big focus for them. And nobody had yet brought it up in the demo. And so they were really happy that I brought that up, actually. I was like, yes, like that's so important to me.
Well, yeah. So that's good to hear that you had that nice thing with your demoist. My demoist was a really nice guy. He was like totally hands off. All he would do is basically, when I would try to touch a setting or like deep dive into the crap I wanted to look at, he'd go, please don't do that because you might break it. And I said, okay.
Oh, really?
Okay. Oh, yeah. But he was a super nice guy. And I really do have to say that the whole thing was run very well. And I liked everybody there and stuff. It was just funny. But anyway, back to the game itself. I don't know about you, but and in relation to that emotional part of it, the Naue part of it, I was locked in on. I was much more like, all right, this is fire. The Yasuke section, again, without any spoilers, fine, was a little drier, more expected, a little less interesting to me and engaging.
So
but...
I don't think that they showed all of Yasuke's, because if you think of Naoe's without spoilers, Naoe has a very complete beginning arc, right, for her character, and there's a very solid ending. Actually, not spoiler, but the Assassin's Creed Shadows credit that happens is right after one of her scenes.
Right. It's
Yasuke. There's a scene right before, like Johnny said, you play as Yasuke before you play as Naoe, and there's a battle that's happening, and we don't really see it come to an end. We see kind of an end to the battle, but we get advanced for the playthrough that we're playing. We get advanced, years or months or something in the future, where now you're level 20 and stuff for gameplay reasons, but they actually kind of had some spoilers in there that was not included in the prologue, having to do with Yasuke and his master and his upbringing and all this stuff that was not shown in that prologue. And so I was like, whoa, that's a spoiler when they mentioned that in that one side quest that you play. I don't know, Johnny, if you played it, but they referenced something happening.
Not really.
And so, anyways, they referenced something happening that we didn't see in the prologue. And so I was like, well, hold on, that's like his whole arc, but we didn't see it. So I'm curious, it maybe isn't his entire arc that we see there, because I agree with you that it was like, Naoe's was very heartstring, you feel, but then Yasuke's
really good.
Wasn't. It was still great, but it wasn't anything on an emotional level like that.
Yes. And the that's all the story stuff of the prologue, which we don't want to talk about, so I'm going to, stop talking about it. But the gameplay of the prologue gave us our first little taste of like, whoa. It felt, I don't actually know if this is the same RPG engine, but it did not feel like it to me.
I don't believe it is.
I mean,
it's at least an updated version, but I'm pretty sure that this is a new edition of some engine.
Yeah, it feels new. And the first indication I had of that, I don't know if you agree, but not only Naoe, but Yasuke, they fly when you're running. They cook. Like, you are no longer some slow kind of Bayek, Eivor kind of really lumbering. These characters, and it feels so increased that it's clearly on purpose and something they wanted to do. You move so fast, and not climbing or anything, just running and turning and dodging. You're moving. So I think that was a clear point of emphasis they wanted to make, is like, yeah, they've been saying we're slow. Eivor felt very slow. Bayek felt very slow. Even Basim in Mirage feels very slow compared to these guys. And so they fly. Yeah.
There was definitely a level of detail here that I have not seen before. And the more that I actually brought it up, the more my demoist was like, yeah, I'm glad you noticed. Here's some other details that you haven't noticed. So one thing that I did notice is in the older games, when you're at a full sprint, you're just at an animation that repeats. And you don't feel like your character is getting tired. But in this one, if you're running, it's not just like a toggle sprint and then you're doing the same animation. Like, it feels way more natural. Like, the running animation is more organic. It may still be a repeating motion, but it's not just like left, right, Tom Cruise running style. It's way more organic, and the longer you run, the more your character starts breathing heavy. You start to hear your character breathe. I noticed it less with Naoe than Yasuke. Yasuke, he's got all the armor on. When I was sprinting with him, I noticed he starts huffing and puffing, and it's like, wow, he doesn't slow down, because there's not a game mechanic that I saw that has any stamina, so that's out of the gate already.
I wanted to point that out.
No stamina bar, and even with
Don't worry,
combat,
everybody.
There's no combat stamina. But that was a cool attention to detail, and there's even things like, with one thing that they pointed out was attention to detail with like Yasuke versus Naoe. Yasuke, when he dives into a bale of hay, he's actually, not only does he do it so clumsily, but when he lands in it, he breaks the bale of hay. It just dissolves. It's gone, and you can't use that bale of hay again for a while until it respawns or whatever. But with Naoe, that's not true. And they even said, like, if you're in a river, I didn't try this, but if you're floating in a river with Yasuke, you'll like stand there in the river, but with Naoe, you'll like slowly float away because you're small and light. And so just little things like that. There were so many little attention to detail moments that I was like, wow, they really put their heart into this.
Yeah, it was the word for the gameplay, for playing the game for 3 hours that I would use is impressive. I was impressed top to bottom, and I mean, while we're already getting into the gameplay stuff.
Well, hold on. Before we get into
the
gameplay, I do want to say this.
Yes.
Before the prologue, there was something called the Animus Hub. Is it right? Animus Hub?
Oh, yes, it was so cool.
So, guys, you may remember this. Years ago, Ubisoft announced something called Assassin's Creed Infinity.
Wow.
And when I brought it up to my demoist, she's like, I don't know what that is, but let me ask the devs. Because my question was, is the Animus Hub that we're being shown right now a new version of what was Assassin's Creed Infinity? So when they announced AC Infinity, they announced it, and then they said nothing about it. Nothing. We had no idea what it was. And so we were all left with speculation, like, oh, it looks like it's some kind of launcher where you can launch all the games, but also, there's other stories that we haven't played from the old games that now can be played either in the old engines or probably the new engines. So there's like an Ezio story in there that you can play and a Cassandra story, and they're all in the new engine. And so all these speculations, but we didn't know. We got confirmation, guys, from the devs. They said that the Animus Hub is a rebranded version, an updated version for Assassin's Creed Infinity, and that Assassin's Creed Infinity was their code name for what is now the Animus Hub. So, and it's exactly what it looks like. It looks different from the other images we've seen in the past of the Assassin's Creed Infinity, but you've got, Assassin's Creed Shadows, you've got Assassin's Creed Valhalla, you've got Assassin's Creed Unity, you've got all these Assassin's Creed games in like a list, and you can go to the next one and you can hit activate. When you hit activate on the other ones in the demo, they did nothing, and they mentioned that. The only one that works is for AC Shadows. When you hit activate, it launches the game. I pushed, guys. I was asking. I said, is this just a game launcher? No, it is not a game launcher, apparently. I really pushed to get that answer because she didn't want to answer it. It's not just a game launcher. It looks like there's going to be, most likely, again, not completely confirmed, but other memories that we haven't seen from the older games that we can launch from within this Animus Hub, which is so cool.
So it just to give some context, you open it up and you see and you hear this very Animus-y, modern day sounding voice.
You're in the
and
Animus
it's flashing
here.
all. What'd you say?
I said, yeah, you're in the Animus here. Like that's what you want you to feel like.
You're the concept is you are first person in the Animus. You're looking at all this stuff go by, and then it zips you to this little timeline. And like Bubba said, in the timeline, you could pick all the old games, and it shows the years of every game. So this is a more like meta, like modern day version of what they did in Black Flag, where you are the modern day protagonist, and that's what it felt like, and it was so cool. And so another thing I should point out in this preview we had, there was no modern day, at least of what we got to play. So this was confirmation that at least like they're not abandoning modern day. There's still a core part of the game. There's still you're selecting shadows from this timeline as some modern day protagonist or whatever. So that was super cool. I had a huge smile on my face when I saw it, and my demoist was like, "What's going on?" And I was like, "Nothing. It's just really cool."
Yeah. Well, and one thing that I did notice, and this is the only hint that we have in the modern day story, is that, and I guess this is a spoiler, but I think it's more exciting than anything else. In the Animus, like he said, it's kind of very first person. You pick your story. There is a cutscene that happens that essentially, Abstergo is walking you through how the Animus works. But then the Animus is like, and you're in the Animus, and it's glitching and it's turning dark. So like the Animus has a very white background, white, everything. And then the dark Animus starts glitching, and it's like mid-sentence, it says like, "You're being lied to." And then it goes back to like, "You can pick in this menu, blah, blah, blah." And it's like, "Don't trust them. It's not the truth." And so this dark Animus thing is interacting with you very much like Subject 16 in Assassin's Creed Revelations. And so something is happening within the Animus that you're in where there's a dark Animus is what they call it. And something is trying to wake you up, but not just wake you up from what you're being lied to with, but they're trying to tell you to meet to learn more. And so they're saying, one of the lines that the Dark Animus says is, "Follow the path and I will meet you there." So I don't know who is talking. I don't know if it's a person or just an entity or AI or what, but something's bugging out the Animus, and very similar to Assassin's Creed Revelations, you're being lied to. The Animus is showing you a false history, and they explain that it's being tampered with, and this Dark Animus is trying to show you the truth. So cool. I am so cool. Unbelievably hyped for that concept.
So cool. I almost forgot to talk about it. Thank you for bringing that up.
Dude, I was over the moon when I saw it.
Such a cool moment, and it I have to give this series credit where it's due. It knows how much we all love the old games, and call it nostalgia baiting or whatever they want. Usually they do a very good job of nostalgia baiting. Like, usually it works so well when they write it like that. So I was so impressed. That was so great. Now I want to get into gameplay because it's me. It's what I do. So the prologue ends. And in the prologue, by the way, guys, it wasn't open world. It was very linear. So you actually couldn't go outside of it would like give you a little glitch and be like, nope, you're out of the mission area. So you had to funnel through whatever, very, very normal for story games and things like that. But then they drop you in the middle of the city, and you're like level 30, and you have a bunch of customization options. And I was like a kid in the candy store because my demoist was like, so we put together this side mission for you that maybe you want to take a look. And I was like, no, stop. And I went and I parkoured on everything I could. I tried every side eject. I tried every back eject, every dive, every flip for like a half hour, trying to just break it down as much as I could. And gut reaction from 3 hours of playing, this is the best parkour we've had in 10 years, in my personal opinion.
Oh, I thought you were going to just put a period on best parkour. I was like, whoa.
No. But this is what a lot of people have been asking for. So it functions like RPG parkour. And I know everybody just went, oh. However, it's much smoother.
It's so
the
smooth.
Animations are insane. Not only do they look really cool with flipping and stuff, but there's so many of them. It's packed with... I got this one side eject animation that I couldn't repeat. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how I did it, but that's exciting because that shows there's some stuff there. Because in Valhalla and Odyssey and Origins, it's like leap, grab, pull yourself up. It's very dry. And this one, they went hard. And like I said, you also move a lot faster. So you're ejecting, you're back ejecting, you're flipping off stuff. And it functions just like, you kind of just hold X and point the joystick, but it looks so good. It feels so good. And the map, I'll say, does a better job, at least the portion we were in, does a better job of accommodating parkour than things like Valhalla's or Odyssey's or Origins. Yes. I think there's denser buildings, there's more things to swing on, flip off of, that sort of thing. The movement mechanics in this game, I was totally blown away by.
I loved the movement, and to your point with the map, every city... I did not actually venture out of the city, believe it or not. You could in this demo. I didn't even make it to the ocean. That was like one of the missions. You could go to the shore. I didn't because I was doing the same thing as Johnny, just screwing around on buildings and killing people. But it's so natural. It feels so good that the controls make sense. In Assassin's Creed Mirage, with the descending parkour feature that they brought back, the buttons that you had to press to do that were very awkward. I remember actually having to remap them on my controller to make more sense because it was just strange. In this one, it's just a simple, you hold A or X to climb, and then you hold B or circle to descend. But you can also just hold A to descend as well, because one thing that I noticed is that, especially as Yahweh, because that's the main character you're using parkour with, is that the animations to descend make way more sense, and like the fluidity. So, in the RPG games, if you're holding A and you jump off a ledge, but there's just like 10 feet down, there's another rooftop, you're going to just leap. You're going to jump and land on that rooftop. But if something's close enough to the bottom, she'll either hang if you tell her to hang, or she'll do like a flip animation and land very smoothly, very ninja-like on the ledge or building below. If it's a really far ledge, she will leap off of it if you tell her to, but again, she will land like very ninja style, Spider-Man style. She'll like distribute all of her weight down evenly, and it's light. There's not a sound that's even made when she hits the ground, and it makes you feel so stealthy. With Yasuke, you can still do, simple movements and climbing and parkour with Yasuke. It's not clunky. Do not get me wrong. He's not some big tank that you can't climb crap with. You can still climb, very similar to the old games. You can climb smaller ledges. You can't be grabbing stuff and pulling yourself up. So if there's ever a ledge that you have to do that, you can't.
Yeah.
He has to use his feet, but he can still move around, very agile. He's not super slow on rooftops or anything like that. But again, the attention to detail. He's way more clumsy and not, he's heavy. He's humongous. He is a tower.
He's huge.
And so when you jump off a ledge, same as Yahweh, or as Naue. I'm forgetting. I'm messing up the names now.
You mixed them. Yeah.
Yeah, I combined them, didn't I? When you jump off as Naue, you land like a cat. But as Yasuke, if you do that same level of distance, when you land, he'll like land on his knees. He will like smash the ground and like stumble to his feet. And like I said, when you do a leap of faith, he will destroy the bale of hay. And he's out for the count for like 5 to 10 seconds. I don't know if you did this. If you'll break the bale of hay and then you can't move. He's like getting to his feet and he's like, he's like injured for a minute. So you can still do a lot of the things that Naue can, not everything. And I really like that. It's not clunky, but the movement felt so natural in this.
So I just want to... There is such a huge difference between characters more than ever before. And I think he actually is I think he's a bit more limited than Eivor or any of the other ones. And it's clearly on purpose. But... like you don't even you're missing a lot in my opinion in his kit for parkour, which makes plenty of sense and I'm all for it. But like Naue has a grappling hook, a full-blown syndicate grappling hook, at least up, not across buildings or anything like that. But you can go up a giant wall and it works so well. It looks so smooth. But like Yasuke doesn't have that. You can't do that. You can't pull yourself up on stuff. So in my opinion, when I was playing both of the characters, to me personally, Naue was above and beyond, like, so much fun and so cool. And I'm a parkour head and I love all the stealth and all that stuff. I know. But, how do I put this? Naue could do everything Yasuke can do, and Yasuke can't do everything Naue can do. So, Yasuke's a tank in combat. Obviously, it's much easier fighting people. He's much more powerful. It's much cooler. You feel better. But Naue can still do combat. Like, she can still do it.
Yes.
It's just not as easy. So that's kind of how I felt. Yasuke felt limited to me, and not in a terrible way. In like you feel like a giant samurai, kind of in the way you felt like a giant Viking. It's very similar to that, actually, which I don't think is a bad thing. However, with what they did with Naue, I mean, this is one of the coolest character builds that we've ever had, in my opinion. From the parkour to the stealth to the grappling hook to the movement to the and might I just say, I want to point this out very clearly. What I think was the coolest part of the whole playthrough, it caught me completely by surprise, and I figured it out with Naue. So when I play, I shut the HUD off because I like my clips to look nice and pretty, and I want to see the whole game and everything like that. So I'm not getting a lot of the button prompts, right, to do stuff. So I figured out by accident, and I'm sure it said this loud and clear if your HUD was on, but the weapons you choose affect stealth, and I thought that was awesome. And so let me explain.
As Naue, it affects your stealth?
As Naue. Maybe it does for Yasuke as well. I was only found this out with Naue, but so for example, she has, in the build we had, she had like a little samurai sword, she had a tiny knife, and then she had a big chain ball. I forget what that weapon's called.
I am so sad. I saw that was there. I never once used it, and I'm actually really sad because in the trailers it looked so cool. Did you use it?
I used it a lot.
How is it?
So, it's great. All the weapons are great, and this is the reason, because they matter outside of just combat. So in previous Assassin's Creeds, you pick your weapon and you only pull it out when you're fighting people.
Yeah.
So I was doing this playthrough and I had the knife and I was doing things and I double assassinated someone. I was like, that is so cool. You can do that. And then I tried to hit the clip again. I went back to my save point and I wanted to hit this clip and I changed weapons and I couldn't double assassinate somebody. And I realized it's only when you have the knife. She uses the knife and the hidden blade. She assassinates 2 people. If you take out the sword, she no longer can do a double assassination. What she can do with the sword is stab it through like the door and stab somebody through that. You can't do that with the knife, and you can't do that with the chain thing. And so, and the chain thing.
That. There was a scene where it's like I knew there was an enemy on the other side of this like paper door, but I couldn't stab him. I probably had the wrong freaking weapon equipped.
Yes, if you had the sword equipped, you can do that. And the chain thing, you can do a very long range assassination. If they're like out in the open.
Dude, I didn't notice that at all.
This was the coolest thing, improvement, whatever you want to call it, in the whole preview, in my opinion. As a gameplay nerd, this was the best thing they've done in so long. And it's even better because nobody asked for it, right? This was not somebody anybody knew about or cared about.
Yeah, completely up to them. Well, so does this mean, like, let's say, because traditionally, if I've got an enemy down there and I climb up a building, I usually just have to be close enough up high where then I can leap and then jump on him to assassinate, or at least do as much damage as I can.
Mm-hmm.
But you're saying there's going to be different ways to assassinate. So, like, let's say there's a guy that's a little too far away. Okay, well, if I have my sword out, I'm not going to be able to reach him. But if I pull out my, chain weapon, I can do a different type of assassination. So just at a glance, you have to know which weapon to equip. And by the changing weapon function is just with the D-pad. You don't have to go to the menu. So you can kind of just, at a glance, see a situation and then choose what weapon that you need for that assassination.
Now I should say, that's just how I perceive it. I haven't heard
so cool.
I haven't heard anybody else talk about this or anything. So maybe I'm making it up and was pressing the wrong button the whole time. But all I know is when I had the knife out, I could do the double assassination, and I couldn't do it with anything else. And I could do that. They show it in the trailer. They show her assassinate somebody with the chain in the trailer.
Yeah.
Way back when. And I was like, how did they do that? Because and I think having weapon-specific stealth adds a whole new layer of, like, you don't just need to be next to somebody with a hidden blade to stay in stealth. Now you can do, like, double assassinations haven't been in Assassin's Creed since Syndicate.
That's true.
And now you can.
That's crazy, actually.
Isn't it? So, and I did it, and I was like, that was so cool. And I tried to do it again for like a half hour, and I was pressing the same button and everything, and she kept just killing one of the guys. And I was like, what is going on? And I put the knife on, she did it, and my mind was blown from a gameplay thing. And now you can see how that's going to build itself when you have to, like you were saying, like you have this giant space in front of you have to stealth through. Now you have to think, what weapons do I want to help me? That's so cool.
Well, there's two things that I think go along with that are just as cool. One, in older games, older RPG games, Assassin's Creed ones, that would probably have taken up an ability slot. Like if this was Assassin's Creed or Assassin's Creed Odyssey, that chain assassination move would have been an ability slot. This is saving an ability slot, and you know what? I would probably bet you that each weapon that you select has a different special ability wheel that you can access, because that's one thing in combat as well, is that there's, a typical, you hold the trigger and then you press one of the buttons for the ability wheel to use an ability. And I never change weapons enough to notice, but I would not be surprised if that is one as well, where there's special abilities that, are specific to each weapon. So whichever one you have out.
I didn't think about it, but I can confirm that's true.
Really?
Because if memory's serving, this is all from memory from a few days ago, but I believe, and I don't know why I never put this together, but one of my abilities with the chain thing, she just started swinging it around, which you're not going to
have that one. So it's because I never used it.
Yeah. Well, you could. You're dead on. So at least
cool.
that was the only example I could find where there's probably weapon specific abilities. And then they did have generic abilities. So they had one where like she would kind of tackle you, and then they had one where he would like kick you into the moon, which was so cool. But I think that for me stood out as like the biggest surprise, because it's not something anybody's ever wanted or knew that they wanted, and that's extra TLC. That's the care that they were like, this would be cool, and they did it. And that's the stuff we haven't seen in so long. So that was my favorite part of the preview. It's so nerdy, but it's true.
We kind of organically moved to the combat section here, but I'm not done with the stealth section, though. I got to talk about that. But while we're on the topic of combat, I definitely felt a difference with Naoe and Yasuke. However, the damage output with Naoe, she's not like she's nerfed. It's not like you're hitting a brick wall with Naoe and you're like, dang, I just don't do as much damage. No, you still do damage for sure. It's different damage. So specifically with Yasuke, right? You've got heavy access to heavier weapons, not just your sword. You've got like this giant hammer thing, and depending on the weapon that you use, it's going to affect enemy armor and enemy stances differently. So if you're attacking a tank versus, a normal, ranged weapon, ranged warrior. But with Naue, you don't have those heavier weapons, but you still pack a punch, but you cannot get hit. Oh my gosh. There was one mission that you have to face 2 Ronins, and they were so hard to kill. I think I was even Yasuke, actually, and they were so difficult to kill. But Yasuke really, he can get hit a lot more, and he has a lot more, options as far as combat goes, and you're a wallop. You seriously do more damage, which is great. But yeah, the difference though, it's not like they nerfed her, which is so great because, like you said, with movement, Naue and Yasuke are very different. Yasuke can, run and use his feet, but he can't climb, so he's very limited. But Naue, you don't feel like you're very limited in combat. In fact, I actually did the final boss fight that we were able to do for the story. They give you like a little story mission. I played it as Naue, and it was still great. And I didn't feel like I was weak or anything like that. I had to really not get hit, but that's okay. And so, yeah, I do really enjoy the combat. It felt so fluid and natural. I didn't even use all the tools, and I didn't even use all the weapons, right? Like I said, there's so many weapons and tools I didn't use, but just that core alone felt so good, and I'm excited to dig into it more. So I think combat is a win out of the gate for sure.
I fully agree with that. I top to bottom, stealth and combat, this is a hard game, in my opinion.
It is
and
hard.
I think
I died a lot. I died a lot.
Especially during stealth. Well, I'll let me hit combat first, like you were doing.
Yeah.
And just to go off it, the weapon types feel very different. Kind of in the similar way that they do in Valhalla and stuff, but it's no different here, except that now I can't use most of the weapons, which is a cool attribute of Yasuke, I would say. The parry system felt very similar, the most similar to Odyssey to me, where you just have to time it pretty well, and then you get this critical hit, and you get that all that extra bonus stuff. You get the same thing with a dodge, where you get that next critical hit and all this stuff if you time it well.
Yes.
The best part about the combat, and this is new for the series, is they have your 2 buttons, R1 and R2, or RB and RT, whatever you're using, just like they do in the other RPGs, except they're each unique attacks. So you tap RB and it does a light RB attack, and then you tap RT and it does a light RT attack. They're different. One's like an overhead sometimes, the other's like a stab, but they're both light attacks.
Yes.
And then you can hold down both of them and they do heavier versions of that attack. So technically there's 4 attack buttons, which is
4
really
basic
cool.
attacks. Yeah.
And that's new. So that was exciting for me. The armor system was really interesting because you have
I love it.
Some of these guys you can, and it goes for stealth too, you can one-shot, like pretty much just bully the guys without armor. And then guys with armor, you have to really think how you're fighting them. And in stealth, I found that if there was a guy with armor, especially if I was trying to stay stealthy as Naue, I would go prone, which you can do, by the way, which is super cool.
We'll get into that.
I would go prone. I would kind of get out of the way and whistle to get him out of there. And then I'd go through and kill all the people I could one-shot, because you can't assassinate people with armor.
You got to save him for last. If you try to get him out first, he's not going to die, and then everyone else is going to come jump you.
Yes. So that's cool. That's a real thought process. I've never once been like, let me get this guy not near me so I can kill. There's an order you have to kill people. Yeah. The stealth was very hard, though. I didn't have a smoke bomb. I was lost. I was dead in the water.
They had smoke bombs. Did you not use them? Dude, they had smoke bombs. They had poison bombs. They had like sleep. They had so many tools that you didn't. So, okay, we'll get into that in a minute. But specifically while we're on combat, while Johnny's dying, there was a lot of tools. I spent most of the time in stealth. I didn't spend most of the time in combat. So armored enemies, a really cool thing, and you saw this in other gameplay, you get to see this. When you're hitting an armored enemy, you will see the armor break and fall off of them as you do more damage. And so their armor bar goes down, and then it's their health bar. And the more their armor bar goes down, the more they lose their physical armor. That's such a cool animation and just level of detail that is not in other games. Just like period. I can't even think of another game that does that really. I'm sure there's a few. Leave in the comments if you want. But that was really cool. And then with one thing that I noticed in combat as well, and I would not have noticed this if my demoist did not point it out, they brought back the assassins or the allies that you can summon, just like in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood and Revelation. So it's even cooler, though, because you have a wheel of different ally types that you can summon. You can summon a stealth ally that will come and assassinate somebody, and you can summon a combat ally that will come and kick ass with you, but, out in the open. And when you're out of combat, even with the combat person will try their best to hide, like in a bush or behind a corner or whatever. They won't climb things, but it helps so much. And that was only 2. There was a wheel of summons that you could do, but we only had access to 2 of them, and those were the 2. The demoist told me that you can actually upgrade those guys. And so specifically with the combat one, I noticed it's like a big brute. It was a woman every time for me. I don't know if that was just luck of the draw, but it was this big brutish woman, and she'd come in with no armor and fist fighting everyone. So she'd come in and just like start brawling. And so I'm assuming that when I upgrade my summons, that she will have armor, she'll last longer, she won't disappear so fast, she won't die, and she can do more damage, things like that. And same with the assassination, allies as well. So cool. I'm so excited for that feature. That adds such depth to the story, because one thing that the the RPG games really suffer from is you feel alone. You feel like a one assassin that, and even if the Assassin's Brotherhood is prevalent. I lost my wording there a little bit.
You got it.
Even if they exist, you still feel alone. And you don't have these allies that come and help you and fight with you. Unlike in Brotherhood and Revelations, you don't feel alone. And so this really helps just with like the headcanon of like, I exist in something larger than me, and I am part of a brotherhood of assassins that are there to help me and to aid me in my quest. So that was so cool to see that, and using it in combat is essential sometimes. Like those 2 Ronins I talked about, I had to summon both of them because they were so hard to kill. But yeah, that was one thing I noticed. Super cool.
I think this game being difficult is a very good thing, because it requires you to use all of the depth that they put in there, which is so. The Mirage way of things was, let's make combat not fun, so that way you're forced to do the stealth because the stealth is good. This is saying, like, you can do combat if you want. You have this absolute giant of a man covered in armor with all the weapons you need, who's going to mess everybody up. Or you can do really fun stealth that requires more thought than any other game in the series, by far, right? There's more depth to this stealth than ever before. I'd argue there's a similar amount of depth to the combat. To me, this is the hardest they've tried in so long, and it's so refreshing. You can feel it. Everything you're saying, from attention to detail to the depth of the gameplay, it's like they had a list of all aspects of the game, and they said, let's turn that up, let's turn that up, let's turn that up, let's turn that up. They didn't leave anything out.
Yeah.
Nothing. Well, it's all, in terms of pure gameplay, it's an improvement across the board.
100%. And one thing that I noticed right before we move on to stealth here with combat, it was difficult, and there was one big reason why, in my opinion. In the other RPG games, if you are fighting someone and somebody comes to hit you from behind or something, if you are mid-strike, you can actually cancel your hit to then do a parry or a dodge. You can cancel your hit. In this game, you cannot. If you are mid-strike, you have to execute the entirety of that strike. So if it's a heavy attack, you're committed to that heavy attack. So you can't just be walloping on one guy like an Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and then somebody else comes to attack you and you're like parry, whack, 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 parry, whack, whack, whack. Like, you cannot do that. You have
it's more realistic.
It's way more realistic. You have to, similar to other games, I'll say like Ghost of Tsushima, you have to really pay attention to when you strike, and if there's somebody else coming at you or somebody approaching you from behind, change your angle so you don't get hit from behind, because it's a lot easier for them to hit you. I don't know if this was just me and with like the delay that we had playing the demo, but I really had a hard time parrying people that were attacking me from behind. I don't actually know if that's a gameplay mechanic, but I found myself having to adjust my character and be very aware of who's behind me and who's in front of me. And it kind of makes it hard to finish off one guy, because you're attacking one person and then you have to shift and move and parry another and start attacking them, leaving the other guy at half health. So it was way harder, and I found myself dying a lot more in groups like that as both Yasuke and Naoe.
Yeah.
Because of that reason. So way more difficult, and again, attention to detail, so cool. Let's officially move on to stealth, unless you have a comment there.
No. I did have a comment. One last thing about combat that I despise deeply was that the Unity guns are back, which
I didn't care for it. It didn't even do that much damage. I was doing headshots with that gun.
How? Oh, well, no. It's nice when you have it, but there's some guy on a roof a mile away who's going to be sniping you in the back. Anyway,
I don't know how to dodge those or parry those. I couldn't figure that out.
Let's move on to stealth before I get angry. Yeah. So, I think, I don't know, did you get to use, like, the shadows? Because I didn't. I didn't hide in the shadow or anything like that.
So I'll start the stealth section here, because I used it a lot. I played Naoe as much as I could, essentially, in like there's a few infiltration missions that you do as Naoe. One of them was forced because it was in the prologue, and one of them you could choose either one. And also, I will note this, as far as switching characters, you can do it on the fly in open world. There is a loading screen. So it's not like it's not like Spider-Man 2 where you switch to Miles Morales and it just like zooms to a different part of New York, and then, hey, now I'm Miles, and he was like doing something, and now I'm playing as him. No, as cool as that would be, there is a micro loading screen. It's very quick, but there is a loading screen to shift, and you're essentially in the general area that you were just a second ago. But throughout the story, I thought that how it worked was, okay, here's your mission. Do you want to play this mission as Naoe or Yasuke? It's not true. You can choose, okay, who do you want to start as? And then you'll progress a little bit, and then there's going to be another event that happens. Who do you want to progress the next part with? Okay, and then you choose. Let's say there's a boss fight. Who do you want to fight this boss with? You get to choose. And then the execution of the boss. Who do you want to execute the boss? And there's story reasons behind that. You get to choose who kills who, or who you spare, or whatever. And that's also another thing, is that you don't have to kill certain bosses, which is kind of new. You did not have that the level of freedom in the other ones. But going back to stealth, I played Naoe as much as I could. It is so much more intricate and difficult than it has ever been before. So the light and dark thing is so cool. Of course, it's kind of like Skyrim. You've got the eyeball. If it's shut, it means like you're invisible, right? If it's open, there's like an eyeball that opens up, and then there's a bar that goes out both directions. And the more white that bar is filled, the more able your enemies are to see you, the more likely you are to be seen. Doesn't mean that you're seen. It's still the regular notification system of like a white bar, a yellow bar, and then a red flashing bar once they come to attack you, right? The suspicion meter. It was not immediate. So even if you're kind of out in the daylight, they don't immediately go, hey, you, and then come and attack you like in Assassin's Creed Origins and Odyssey, that it was just broken. It's like, wow, like I barely stood up out of a bush and now I'm seen. It's not like that. There's a good level of suspicion, and I really liked it. But the distance at which enemies can see you and spot you is crazy. You have to be so cognizant of line of sight at all times because of this. There was a scene where it was like pitch black. I was prone in a bush, so not only can you crouch to go into stealth, but even if you're crouched, even in a bush, you are not invisible. If somebody's coming at you and you're moving in a bush, they can see you. It's very realistic. You're in an effing bush. It's gonna make noise. You're gonna be seen. You can lay down flat. However, when you lay down flat, you're slower and you cannot use your tools like your smoke bomb, your throwing stars, your knives, all that stuff. So it makes you essentially invisible in most places, but you're limited and you're very slow. And so there's definitely places you want to use it, but you don't use it all the time. There was one time that, another trope that is gone is that if you're above an enemy, they won't see you. Not true. If they are not suspicious and they're just on patrol, they won't see you, right? It's still a safe zone if you're up on a roof. If you kill someone and they see a body or there's any reason for suspicion, they hear a noise, they will look everywhere for you. There is at one point that I killed a guy. He was like 200 meters away. He was so far away, and a guard saw him, and he was looking around. I was on a rooftop like hundreds of yards away, and he's like, "Hey, what's that?" I was shocked. I was like, no way that guy sees me. And I had to go to the other side of the roof and go prone for him to not. But now he's coming over to my area to come find me. So it's crazy the realism that you feel being in stealth. The enemy AI is so much smarter than before, and the light dark system is like essential to stealth. It's still very core, stealth as it used to be. But there's so many tools in your arsenal and environmental things that you can take advantage of to be a stealth master, and it's so cool.
Yeah, I want to point out quickly that this isn't the NPCs are so much smarter, not in an Odyssey way, where if one guy sees you, the whole base is on you, but instead there is a true detection system. There is a true alert system. This is what I mean when I say they turned everything up, where it's like they said, all right, let's make some real stealth. Let's make you have to think. I think that's the big takeaway from the stealth for me was like, you got decisions to make. Like I said before, you got weapons to pick from, which can help you in some scenarios. You have different types of enemies. Some guys have some armor. Some guys have a ton of armor. Some guys have no armor.
Them. You can't one-shot them.
Right. Unless, now I should preface this as well, this is a preview build. We didn't have the full list of abilities. We didn't have the full list of settings even. So maybe the game has a Valhalla setting where you can one-shot everybody. But for the first time, I think it actually hurts the game because I think it's purposeful. Yes. Unless you get to the point where you can't one-shot the non-armored guys, which at that point, that's stupid. But...
And there was times in the other RPGs where that was true. You can't one-shot
100%.
And that
you can't one-shot anybody.
I just have to use my bow and use a special ability to headshot people.
Yeah. Oh, that's the other thing. Bows, guns, they're not OP. At least the ones we had. They're harder to use.
The guns were like Nerf bullets.
Yeah. Which is good. I mean, this game makes you think so much more. In stealth specifically, oh man. You are... But it's a good thing because it's built so well that they're baiting you. They're saying, figure this out. It's a literal puzzle that you say, and there's a way, there's an answer, and when you do it perfectly, it's going to feel so much better than it did in old games where you just smoke bomb your way through and abuse their poor detection system, or you're Eivor and you just roll people, which you can still do with Yasuke, and it is still very fun, and there are sections where that will be needed. But if you can see this giant castle in front of you and basically take on every challenge, they have stuff you can cling to in the roof with their grappling hook. They have, as we saw in the trailer, a river you can go in with her little reed and stay underwater. They have these things where they're like, here's a problem, here's 5 different answers, figure it out. And that is such a cool feeling. And they nailed it across the board with this game. Again, the word for me is impressed. I was so impressed.
Yes, and it felt so natural. I found myself really going back to my roots of how I play stealth. So I found myself going on the outskirts of the building, and there were certain walls that I'm like, I can't scale that. But then I'll go to the base of the wall, and it's like, oh, well, just use your grappling hook. And I'm like, wow, I'm not limited at where I can climb. I am a ninja. I can climb and, scale anything and use any angle I want to approach a situation. And so the big thing that's also palpable in the stealth is that, like you said, when you see a castle, there are so many ways that you can approach this to take out the enemies. Whether you want to try to lure them, or you want to try to take them out in a certain sequence, or you want to try to memorize their current patterns of guarding the area, of walking back and forth, whatever you want to do. Maybe there's a fire barrel nearby that you can shoot. There was a time that I did that where I threw a star at a barrel of oil or something, and it blew up and took out 5 guys for me, which was great. But there's so many different ways that you can do this, and it felt so natural. And I didn't even use everything. I did. Apparently, you didn't use it, but there's like a smoke bomb. There's ninja stars. They're like the little knives, so they're not ninja stars, but they're like ninja blades. Yeah, kunai. I don't know the difference between the two. Maybe one is for
they
outright
weren't that
combat,
strong,
and one's for stealth, but the kunai were pretty strong for headshots. I actually, at one point, there was an enemy that I was like, I can't get to him without getting seen, and so I just like headshot him with a kunai, and he was a little guy, so I took him out. And so that it's very similar to like the Ezio games where you've got your throwing knives and stuff. And so there definitely are ranged abilities, and there's smoke bombs, and there's other things. You can use your grappling hook in combat. You can even use your grappling hook to do certain assassinations. Like you can swing to them and then do an assassination. There's so many different things that you can do. And also, by the way, you don't need to kill everyone. So very similar to Assassin's Creed Mirage, where they kind of make an emphasis of like, hey, you're an assassin. Like you can go in there like a blade in the daylight, like how Altair did, kill the one guy and get out of there. Like you do have the ability to stealth your way in, do the objective and get out without having to kill everybody in the fortress like you do in so many other older games. And the AI, to your point, Johnny, in the older games, the older RPGs, so like Odyssey, Origins, you find yourself memorizing the movement of the AI. And that's just how it is, right? You can't make the game so smart that it outsmarts us. Like we learn patterns. That's how humans work. I get it. But I found myself in Odyssey specifically very quickly finding out how enemy AI works and how far they can detect and how they patrol, where I found myself like, taking out surrounding guys, and then just kind of, I was trying to lure out the big captains, the heavy duty guys. I'd lure them out as far as I can, do a 1v1, and then do that a few more times.
Yes.
So I would just, kind of cheesing. I would cheese as much as I can.
No, you can absolutely, yes.
Because there's not a million ways that you can do a fortress in AC Odyssey or Valhalla. Like, Valhalla did have more, definitely. But in like Odyssey and Origins, there's not a million ways that you can stealth. The stealth is actually very basic. And once you're noticed, the whole freaking compound will know that you're there and come to fight you. Not true.
And know right where you are. Yeah.
Not true. There is a limited zone, to the point that I think I even fought someone and then I went like around a building and I was like, oh, I don't know how he didn't see me. Like I thought I cleared it because I killed everyone that came to fight me. But no, there's people that don't hear that you're fighting. And so, the stealth felt so natural.
It felt intentional, which is the best part.
Yes, yeah.
Everything felt like they thought about it. And like you said, like I had this boss fight in Odyssey where you have this giant hill leading up to this little house of the leader, and you have to go through all these people, and it's sitting on the edge of a cliff. So what did I do? I climbed up the whole cliff, got just the leader, and just literally shot him with about 85 arrows and did the Sparta kick about 45 times until he died. And that was it. And I basically skipped the level. That's not intentional. They didn't mean for that to be a thing. You kind of cheated it. Everything in this game is so thought about from what I've played. Everything is so intentional and it's so refreshing. If you're good with stealth, the last thing I really want to hit is just the map, the world, the graphics, the visuals, the gear. They murdered it. I mean, it's cool because if you want to call Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla like realistic looking, because they all are, right? They're almost like photoreal. They're some of the prettiest games I've ever played, especially Valhalla and Odyssey. When you get on those giant maps, you have those flawless graphics. I don't care what people are saying. Get off your PS4s and use a real thing. But this game takes the realism and says, let's add a bit of like an artistic tone. So they have like trees, to me, looked a little extra bendy, and leaves were like way more than you would normally see. And they have everything, and the fire is brighter, and the lightning is more apparent, and everything is like turned up and exaggerated a little more, where it's actually like a stylized game. Everything looks amazing. The way things blow in the wind, the way things interact with reflections, and even down to really detailed stuff is, I thought Mirage was a amazing looking game, and you just take that and put Mirage's graphics on a giant open world, and that's what you have, and it's beautiful looking. It really is.
Yeah, I loved it. I actually didn't get into, outside that city that we are put in for this part. You could go out into nature more. I didn't go into any water or anything, but it is gorgeous. It is a very, I'm not going to call it fantasy version of Japan, but very like peak, like what you think of 1500s Japan. Like it's very, very, realistic yet artistic at the same time. And, like you said, kind of with, you see that you feel like you exist within the world rather than just like playing in it. And so the attention to detail, even down to, let's say that you're walking down a street as Yasuke, people are going to see you and they're going to look at you and they're going to track you. They're like, what is this giant African man doing here? And he's this giant samurai. So a lot of people will be like shocked, like, who's this giant man? And then a lot of people see you as a samurai. And so they'll come to you and bow. You feel seen. You feel like you have a physical presence in this world. And even down to one thing that I noticed, again, attention to detail, they have Zen gardens in certain like palaces, right? Where it's like the if you don't know what a Zen garden is, it's like small rocks that they rake to have like lines throughout it. So it's like almost like a sandbox that they put lines and make it look pretty. When you walk through those, it's kind of like snow animation a little bit. Like you see all your footsteps and stuff, and you can, by the way, you can do parkour on trees and stuff again, which is super cool. Not like in Assassin's Creed 3 where you can do essentially any tree. But I think that it is enough where there's going to be certain parkour lines in the wilderness that you can do tree-to-tree stuff. It really seemed that way. And so, again, the attention to detail, you feel seen, you feel like you exist in this place rather than just that main character of energy of like, out of the way NPCs, and you're just plowing through everything and nobody notices you. It's like, no, you feel seen, you feel like you exist, and that you're actually playing as somebody in history. So the animus is real, guys.
When you said the out of the way NPCs, all I pictured is the starting area of Unity when there's just a swimming pool of people and you just push through everybody. This is... the other cool thing that I thought was the actual landscape. Like, you could be at the bottom of this like hill and you can't see the horizon. The hill is so tall in front of you and it's so steep. It's not something you climb. Oh, that's the other thing. Let me sidetrack my sidetrack. Is that you can't climb everything like you could in the other RPGs. Like I remember when I first played Origins, I was like, I'm going to try to climb this cliff, and you can't. And even as ridiculous as it looks, you can't. You can't in this game. You can't just climb the side of a mountain in this game. You have to find a foothill. You have to use your grappling hook on a wall that you can. Like, again, intention. Everything was thought of. There was no, like, blanket, yes, this will work on anything. They thought about everything. Everything is there on purpose. The way things work are all on purpose. And you know what? Maybe that's 3 months of work. That kind of stuff, I can see them refining things you can climb. I can see them refining animations, like you said, with the you can't pause your attacks anymore. All these little, that attention to detail, maybe we have to give them some credit here, because 3 months, maybe that helped.
Well, and one thing that I loved before we played the game for the demo, there was a video from, is it the CEO of Ubisoft or something? One of the head guys there, very heavy French accent. One of those guys.
Yeah, that's him.
He did this, like 15, 20-minute introduction video, and one thing that he said was, this is the ultimate Assassin's Creed game. And how they explain that in more detail, because then they go on how it is, it's not just because it's the newest, right? It's not a marketing, word that they're using, like the ultimate Assassin's Creed game. No, they mean it. Like this was their intention, and you can feel it in their messaging when they talk about this game, that this is the pinnacle of Assassin's Creed, and that this is everything that they've wanted to put in an Assassin's Creed game. It's in here. This is it. I agree. And Assassin's Creed games moving forward are going to emulate this. And that, all the attention to detail, all the game mechanics that they ever wanted to put in, nothing was put down. Everything was put in.
Yes.
And that's why it's taken probably 7+ years to make this game. And it's had these delays, because there's so much that they put into this. and they needed it to work. And so I think these delays are, okay, we have everything in here, but maybe everything doesn't work enough. So let's get it done so then people feel the effort that we've put into this game when they play it. And I felt it. I really did. And I'm not just saying that because I'm an Assassin's Creed fan.
Yeah, you feel it, you see it, you play through it. Just everything was so well done. And what would you say your word is, Bubba? Attention to detail. That's your slogan.
I'm gonna say it's natural. The whole you pick up the game and you know how to play
organic.
There's no weird controls. There's no weird aspects to the game. It feels like again, that pinnacle of Assassin's Creed. And you know what? I will say this because people always talk about this. It does not feel like Ghost of Tsushima. It doesn't. I've played Ghost of Tsushima. It's an incredible game. This does not feel like that. It doesn't look like that. The vibes are not the same. The combat is not the same. The world building, everything feels so different from that game, which I don't know how they did that, because I thought I was going to get into this and be like, oh yeah, it's like Ghost. No, like even down to the grappling hook, like it is so different from Ghost, which is really good to know, because that was everyone's concern, especially with Ghost of Tsushima coming out with a sequel this year. And so they really do play different, and it will most likely be a whole different experience. So it really, again, it felt organic, it felt natural, it felt right to play this game.
To that point, it just reminded me, when I'm hitting my clip, right? I was trying to hit this clip the whole time. There was a fence, and it was kind of on a ledge, and there was a roof next to it. And I was like, I wonder if I could do Naoe's dive, and like it would dive over that. Because in Odyssey, no way in hell would that work. No way in hell would Valhalla work.
Leap off of it.
You literally, this wasn't a jump. This wasn't a mantle. This wasn't a vault. This was my diving dodge move that went right over the fence, rolled onto the roof. It worked perfectly. And I was just like, oh, I thought about it. I said, does that work? I'm guessing it'll work. It worked. And then there was a latch on the roof. I said, I bet money I can open that. And you go right in. It works. Everything works so well. And I'm so pleased with the way it turned out. So, I can't wait to play it again. I don't know about you.
I was upset at the end. I was like, man, I can't believe we're 2 months out from playing this. But again, guys, they cooked with this. Like Johnny said, they really did. This is the Assassin's Creed game. It's the perfect setting. It's the perfect, style. And you've got the dual protagonists. The combat, guys, it's there. The stealth, it's there. The story, guys, I'm feeling it already. There. The emotion is palpable. There's multiple scenes. Johnny, did you play the final mission that they have you do at the end?
No.
No?
No.
Okay, that's why you didn't do so much stealth. So, there's a final mission that apparently Johnny didn't play. If you didn't do all the little side missions while they let you, that's okay. They'll advance you to like the final. Very similar to Assassin's Creed Mirage, where they say, okay, to find your next like Templar target or whatever we're calling them now, you need to go to this area and like do some quests, like find out, explore, do quests, learn about this enemy that you're hunting, find out who they are, because we don't know their identity. It's very Cult of Cosmos-esque in this game, which is great. I love that game mechanic, but kind of return of that. And you go through essentially a finale mission for that area where, you either hunt or assassinate or do whatever to kill that Templar or whatever. So that was the finale of that mission set. It was incredible. Again, that you can feel the emotion and every single reaction that every character has, and it seriously pulls at your heartstrings. Like there were multiple scenes where I was like, damn, like that is so sad, or that is so terrible, or that I can't imagine that. Like you feel like you're watching a freaking movie. And it's so great. And so, I'm sad that you didn't play that last mission.
You know what? It's just sad. It's not sad. I had better things to do, man. I was working for a half hour. I was figuing out all the different ways you could go into prone.
Your demoist is like, what is wrong with this guy?
He did. My demoist was like, he was like, you only have like an hour left and you haven't done any of the missions. And I was, while he was saying that, going in and out of prone for like 5 straight minutes, trying to figure out if you could like run into it and all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, man, I appreciate it. But like, let me cook here. Yeah.
I'm playing this game just to get clips on TikTok.
I was not in it for the story, man. Not for this preview. This was let me feel how this game's going to be, and it passes the Johnny vibe check.
Well, and Johnny's all about the gameplay and the movement. I'm all about the story, and it's there. So Johnny gets the thumbs up for all the movement and combat. I'm giving the thumbs up for the world and the animation and the emotion and the story and the characters. It's seriously, this is it, guys. This is it. I'm just hoping
Assassin's Creed Shadows,
long.
they cooked.
I want a long game for this, actually, even though I complain about that for Paul. I want it to be long. I want to be able to chew on this for so long.
I think Ubisoft genuinely has a chance to save themselves with Assassin's Creed Shadows. Everybody's been talking, oh, it's the downfall. Ha ha, this is so great to watch. They cooked.
They did.
They cooked. This is going to be great. Everybody should be very excited for March 20th. So, guys, with that, I think we're going to wrap it up here. Yep. But, Bubba, thank you so much. This was a blast.
It seriously is so fun. Thank you guys for being here for this podcast. We'll be back probably next week. We're hoping to record these once a week, and so we will likely release them once a week as well. It's not just going to be about Assassin's Creed Shadows. The timing of this, of course, worked out where we just played the game the other day. And all that, but we're going to be doing stuff like, top 10 Assassin's Creed games, top 10 protagonists. We're going to be going into, the worst combat, the best combat, the worst stories, the best stories. We're going to be diving into lore about Isu and about the Assassins and the Templars and some of our favorite stories and things like that. So anything Assassin's Creed related, we're going to get into it. We're so opinionated, the two of us. We disagree on most everything, but we love to talk about it, and we just love these games. We hope you guys enjoy this podcast as much as we love doing it, and we will see you guys next week.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.